Wow, Phoenix did something right today on the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. Oh, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I am the Associate Broker and Residential Sales Manager at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode something. That's a good question. 142. Episode 142. So, I was, usually I do a little bit of, do some of my graphics while I'm setting this whole thing up. I just did not check that slide. So, that's how I remember it's 142. Last week was 141. So, I hope you guys are doing pretty good. I'm wearing my VFW t-shirt today because I was down at the VA hospital on 32nd Street where we were having a, it was called Meeting Face to Face, which I thought was silly because Meeting Face to Face was actually for the blind. It was a white cane event, and it was a opportunity for the VA to showcase the various programs and policies, procedures, and all whatnot for our sight challenged veterans, and they needed somebody down there to push wheelchairs and direct people and basically play seeing eye dog. And hey, it's a chance to talk to strangers, and I'm always down for that. So, and then I busted right up here. I had to stop at the house, check on the chickens and whatnot, and come busting right up here, and here I be. And that's why my hair is a little like this, because I've been out in the hot sun. So let's see, what is going on in the world today? We are having, well, let's start off at the top, all right? The court case has kicked off, all right? Various people are being brought up onto the stand and making testimony. It looks like that the prosecution is really weighing in on not particularly going after NAR at this point. They seem to be going after Keller Williams and Remax or anywhere or these other companies. Basically around their training and, bringing examples of their training manuals out and going, well, it says right here, you were learning to overcome, objections, which is pretty standard sales technique. I mean, when I get a call from a salesperson or I'm interacting with a salesperson and I am saying, yeah, but not really, and hey, this is my problem. You can tell the people are really scripted at what's called overcoming, objections. It's like, but I don't need a walk-in freezer. Well, I understand. A lot of people don't think they need a walk-in freezer, but when you realize that the price of beef, when you buy it, is a half, right? That you could actually hang a half of beef in there and just go, I want prime rib, and go in there and carve yourself off a slice. I mean, you really start realizing how it starts paying for you in the long run. That's just a foolish example of, overcoming expectations. In this particular case, the training was, but I don't want to pay 6%. Yeah, because these brokerages standard was you're going to go in there with a, and if you want me to list your house, it's going to be 6%, but I don't want to pay 6%. All right. Well, what do you want to pay? Why do you think that's advantageous to you outside of just simply, saving yourself a point, saving yourself 1%, $3,000 in a $300,000 house, $4,000 in a $400,000 house. And, the training is along the lines of, just so you understand, when you decide, you think to yourself, hey, I'm just taking a point off. All right. On that side of the equation, that for me is a 20% pay cut, all right? And I give you 100%. You want me to just give you 80%? All right. That's an example of some of the training that these organizations were pushing out, and this is what's being held up by the prosecution, or I should say the plaintiff. All right, sorry, I'm not an attorney. I don't even play one on TV, right? But, the plaintiff's attorney is saying this is an example of these guys steering people towards overpaying for this goods and services. And so that's been the course of this week. All right. These have been examples of what's kicking back and forth. And they brought Gary Keller of Keller Williams. They're not actually bringing these guys to the stand. Because when you're rich enough, you can literally phone it in. So it's not like they're bringing him and putting him in the dock and lambasting him. It's like, I would like to bring the stand witness A, and then next thing you know, they hit the play on the VCR and they do a recorded statement. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. I know there's a lot of agents out there going, well, why aren't they doing this? Why isn't they using this as a defense? Why aren't they going this route? It's like, the defense hasn't made its argument yet. And we all don't know how the law works the way we think the law works. This is not television. Right? So let the attorneys do their jobs, all right? And we'll see how this whole thing plays out. But I'm still amazed that online there are agents asking, what is this all about? No, this isn't going to be a problem, and this and that and the other thing. And my other personal favorite is obviously those listing agents out there who've been quite happily, sharing a different percentage than is considered market equitable, out there going, well, you should just be happy with what you get paid and deal with it. I would be, and then you look them up and they've got like the 35 freaking listings last year, and every one of them they're, charging under market rate so they can get 35 listings. Hey, market's in action. This is how it's supposed to work. All right. Completely on board with that. All right. I have to, capitalism for the win. Why are we charging 6 industry standard? Because we can't get away with 7. All right. Honestly, here in Phoenix, I don't think 6 has been the average for quite some time. All right. I think the average is probably more like around 5, because with as many agents as we have, there is that race to the bottom kind of routine. I have a bare minimum that I will list for. All right. I have, what I call my friends and family rate. And I'll tell you straight up, all right, if you sit there and you were to call me up and say, hey, Ray, I want to list a house, and oh, by the way, I saw in this podcast you have a friends and family rate. You are instantly my friend if you're watching this podcast. Yes, you'll get the friends and family rate. We'll have that conversation when that happens, right? Somewhere out there, there would be, if I was particularly legal, terrified, there would be, oh my God, I can't believe he just said that. He just opened himself up to prosecution. Like what? I said there were 2 rates, friends and family rate and my standard rate, and my friends and family rates are friends, family, return business. All right. If I sell the house that I helped you buy, I'm not charging you the full freight as if somebody who just completely come in. Why? Because I'm not having to pay for the marketing costs. All right. And that's, honestly, I think everybody needs to run a lemonade stand for one summer at least once in their life. Like truly. I'm not just talking go raid your mother's cabinets, right? Grab the sugar and pour it into the big thing and throw in some food coloring and try to sell lemonade that's going to, like diabetes in a cup for 25 cents or $1, whatever the kids are charging now. Last time I paid $1 for iced tea that was probably about half a coffee cup. All right, and on that half a coffee cup, they squeezed in like 4 lemons and piled in a bunch of sugar and then threw some little water in, and I swear the little stir stick stood it up by itself, and, I drank that down, and paid my $1 for it, and then instantly went testing my glucose levels immediately after, because, how else are kids supposed to learn how this works? I'm also the same way. It's like I walked out of a freaking grocery store the other day, and there's a Cub Scouts there. They're selling popcorn. All right. And like, you like to buy some popcorn? I'm like, hell yeah. Cub Scouts, learning how to sell things. I'm completely on board with that. So, and just a little word of advice. If you guys ever see kids selling you anything, even if they're rocks, go buy a rock. All right. Help a kid out. Help them learn the dream. Maybe one day too, they'll be ranting and raving on YouTube about their, commissioned rock sales or whatever. So, all right. Rambling aside and whatnot, let's, some really cool news here in Phoenix, all right? And the best way to lead into this is, of course, starting with the numbers, and we'll go to the cool news, all right? Here's the numbers, all right? Run yesterday on October 18th, 2023. Actives at that point were 14,367, up 627 from the week before. New listings were 2,055, up 132. Our contracts were 1,754, up 35. Closings last week were 1,250. And coming soon to an MLS near you is 696 new listings. So, take a little grain of salt on the actives on these numbers this week, because I did not run them at 9 o'clock like I normally did. I ran them at 10:30, and I can't guarantee you that we don't have a statistical spike in there because I ran it an hour and a half later. Maybe some of these listings came on that normally wouldn't have not been on at that time. Maybe some of these things that have been on our contract normally have been reported. So keep an eye on that. But down at our Cromford report numbers, all right, supply right now is at 55.2 and demand is at 73.2. Both have dropped, of course, which means our Cromford report number is 132.6. Now, normally right here, what I'd be doing is I'd be clicking over and we'd be going through the individual regions, individual cities, individual towns. We don't have that information because those guys at Cromford decided they wanted to go on vacation. Right? So they did not run their Friday numbers like they normally run. All right? But what they did run, now that they're back from vacation, is this chart right here, which I want to show you. All right, this one is a visual representation of that Cromford market index number and how it's been dropping. Notice back in April we were at 140. Then we go in this summer run. All right, it's our seasonality that we're used to, and then we're seeing that seasonality die off. All right, the big thing that we're seeing on this though, all right, is our numbers right now are looking at, the 73.2 right here. That Cromford demand is as low as we've seen this in January 11th, beginning of this year. Right? This is actually sort of seasonality, right? But we also have inventory coming on. That's the 627. This is a little unusual for this time. All right? So these are those little alarms. Not really alarms, but these are little yellow lights starting to flash, engine temperature. All right? Or in this case, engine temperature because the engine's too cold. We are, all right, and continuing on of our potential freezing up here. All right, remember last week we were talking about being frozen. Right about now, okay, this is how it's starting to look out because interest rates are a 30-year jumbo. All right, I can't tell you off the top of my head what that cut is until when you're in jumbo loan territory. All right, but they have breached the 8% mark. There's that 8% wall we were talking about, all right? And that tends to precede, all right, what we see these, normal conforming loans go, okay? So now we're hitting 8s. That makes demand drop even more, all right? Right? That brings us even close to the potential of hitting a balanced market at, once we hit that 110, right? And according to this chart, not only are we headed there, we're actually starting to accelerate. The delta is increasing. The change from the last number to this number is increasing. We can really, really easily be into a balanced market, not a crash, a balanced market, all right, in the next 2 to 3 weeks. All right, let's see how that one goes. All right, especially, I would say about November. First week or so of November, second week or so of November, historically, we go into the holiday doldrums. Right? Nobody wants to move before Christmas. Nobody wants to move immediately after Christmas. That's when we see everything just sort of freeze up for 2 weeks. Or 2 months, which is why I always tell agents, hey, September pays for Christmas. You're not, what you get under contract in September, which closes in October, will pay for Christmas in December. Because November and December is going to be slow. Except for those investors. Because that's when the investors come out to feed. The investors are like the White Walkers. Okay? When winter comes, they pop up and they know that they can make bank. Because they know demand is going to be incredibly slow out there. And you're going to have buyers who have gone through the entire summer. Right? Maybe overpriced, maybe undermarketed, whatever it is. That's when the investors know they can come in and make their big deals, all right? And because there are going to be people out there who want to sell for whatever reason before the end of the year. All right, so don't be surprised if come November and December, we start seeing this really start getting a little crazy. And the doom and gloomers on the other YouTube channels start talking about, here's the crash, here it is, here it is. It's not a crash until prices drop. Right? Even at this point, we're not looking at seeing a price drop. That was last year. Okay, we've recovered out of most of that. Most areas have recovered out. A couple little areas still haven't, all right? But that was that. This 8%, the 7% is almost baked into the cake when it comes to buyers coming online. It's just that if they need to buy, they need to buy. All right? If they want to buy and can buy, they're still out there doing it. All right? What's going to happen is when you can't buy. because you cannot afford to buy the house and make the payment in the area in the house that you want to live in. So you might as well rent. All right. Trust me, when I start seeing my numbers start looking like here's your collapse, I will be the first to scream. Now, I'll be the third or fourth to scream, but I'll be screaming when it's actually happening instead of the people who are screaming. I mean, they get in the roller coaster cart and that little thing comes down underneath them and they already start screaming. Yeah, we ain't there yet, all right? So, or we might not have that happen, all right? Because, well, the banks have had enough. All right, you've heard real estate agents out there saying this is BS, all right? You've heard various talking heads out there saying this is BS. Well, now that the banks are officially writing letters to the Fed going, hey, listen, pencil necks, all right? This is what you're doing. You're screaming about inflation. Right? You'll scream about, oh, we got to keep raising these rates because of inflation. And here's the reflation numbers. And the smart people who actually look past the frickin' headline and read the numbers themselves realize there's three things that are causing inflation right now, boys and girls. That is energy costs, right? That is food costs, right? And that is housing costs. All right. All three of these things can be impacted by a federal government that cares about the humanity and cares about Americans. Ooh, I just got political here. But let's roll with this. I'm having a good time. Right? Why are energy costs up? Well, have you looked at the Middle East lately? All right. Do you realize in the last 3 years we went from a country that exported energy to now we're having to import that again? That's because of policy. That was a political decision. All right. 2, food costs. Food costs are directly impacted by the inputs from the energy industry. And it's not just diesel to drive the tractors. Where do you think that fertilizer comes from? All right. Put down the TikTok video. All right. Open up a browser window and look to see where fertilizer comes from. You'll be shocked. All right. Third one on that is housing. How do they rate housing? Whether or not people can afford to live in the places, which means can buyers buy and can renters rent. And what impacts that? It's the Fed. So the Fed is literally in a self-perpetuating loop here. That self-perpetuating loop is they keep raising rates to try to get interest down, but it's raising the rates that is increasing inflation. All right. So now the big banks are actually starting to send letters out. All right. And it's to whom it may concern. Politicians who think you're getting elected next year. That's what the subheading of these letters are. All right, so I'm expecting to see a little bit of change on that. But now that they've finally decided, all right, enough is enough, maybe we can start seeing something impact here. I'm a little excited to see that. I mean, it's really sad that you have to take a stick to politicians to get them to do what they're supposed to. But hey, America. Speaking of America, I have another chart here that I really want to go into. All right. Now, because of all these things, another article here, this is on CNN, only 1% of houses, all right, actually went on the market this year, all right? They call it 14 out of every 1,000 existing homes churned over, all right? Why? Because people can't afford to buy and people can't afford to sell because of the interest rates, right? This is that freezing I'm talking about, right? And that means, well, it's bad for real estate agents, and it's bad for lenders, and it's bad for escrow officers and home inspections and appraisers and handymen. It's bad for Home Depot. It's bad for Target. It's bad for Walmart. You know, when you create a new household and somebody has to suddenly get stuff in their house because they're no longer living with mom and dad, they tend to go down to Target or Walmart or something like that and buy stuff. Right? No household formation, no need for household appliances. All right, so that's what a 1% turnover is doing for us, everything. All right, but once again, what's the primary thing? All right, you need a house to sell a house. People don't want to put their house on the market. You can't buy a house because it's not for sale. All right, but you still need a place to live, and we still understand that we have incredibly low inventory. And so, the city of Phoenix does something right. Okay, I hope you don't have to clean off your keyboard with the spit take you just took when I said that out loud. Not only that they did something right, but that Ray admitted that the city of Phoenix has done something right. But they've updated their accessory dwelling unit code. All right. ADUs. ADUs is a fancy term, right, for guest house. All right. This is something you've heard about me talk this before. I'm very pro ADU. And what they did here in the city of Phoenix, if they have changed the regulations so you can, in the city of Phoenix, now put a guest house in your backyard and rent it out. It doesn't have to be a mother-in-law cottage. All right. It doesn't have to be a guest. You can actually rent that out to a complete stranger. There's some rules and regulations. All right. No Airbnb. You are not renting this out to a hipster for a weekend. You are not, renting this out to some bougie person or something who just wants to show up and experience the Phoenix Film Festival or something, and they're just going to stay. No, you need to put a person in a house for a minimum amount of at least 1 year. All right. Now, you can Airbnb a area of your property, but it actually has to be the main house. So if you wanted to move into the guest house and Airbnb out your regular house, that's okay. Okay, but no, you don't get to put an Airbnb guest house in your backyard or anything like that and start making a profit out of it. You need to house people. All right. Other thing along these lines is, all right, for up to lots up to 10,000 square feet, the maximum size of the ADU is 1,000 square feet. If you have a lot that exceeds 10,000 square feet, okay, then you can actually go as the size of the ADU can be 3,000 square feet, which is actually like a whole new house. All right, so there's also a lot of changes that have been made to make it easier to build a duplex and a triplex, all right, which helps us with population density, getting more units and more doors. Wow, City of Phoenix. Wow. I'm incredibly happy with this. I'm incredibly happy with this. It's almost like they're listening to my podcast and taking my, my advice. That would be awesome. I doubt it, though, because the library still sucks. That's a whole different conversation over there. But I'm really, really impressed with this. And one of the things I noticed as an example, this came up in Nextdoor this week, that there was somebody in my immediate neighborhood who is renting a 1-bedroom, 1-bath with a loft, an internal washer and dryer in my neighborhood for $1,600 a month. I'm going to assume that that includes, utilities and everything like that, but still. Right. Now, I saw that number and instantly started doing the math in my head. Would it be advantageous to me? Can I hire a contractor and put a guest house in my backyard and rent it out, all right, for $1,600 a month, or probably less, to one of the homeless veterans I interacted with this Saturday? All right. They have Social Security payment, they might have a VA disability pension, and they're a fixed income. All right. Can I do that and break even? That's numbers that are going on in my head right now. Can I do that and make sure that place is handicapped accessible and that they can actually get from point A to point B in a wheelchair? I mean, I have a gravel driveway. All right. We're coming up on Halloween. You know how much joy I get sitting there with my front door open, listening to the sound of somebody push a 500-pound baby carriage up my driveway in the gravel? I giggle every time. It's one of the great joys I have in my life, right? But I'd feel bad if that was somebody pushing their wheelchair up. Yeah. Okay. So these are things you need to come in when you start doing an ADU. But that'd be a great financial improvement of my property. All right, that would be Ray walking the walk and helping create, actually, not just sell, not just transact housing, but actually create housing for people. And it's something that I could, it's not that, I would sit there and say, no, this is only for veterans. All right, even though veterans aren't a class for discrimination. All right. I'm one of those weird people. I think discriminatory things go both ways. So if you can say you can't discriminate against veterans, you shouldn't be able to discriminate against non-veterans. Ray's personal opinion, asterisk, not the opinion of ProStar Realty or the National Association of Realtors. All right, but still, I could sit there and it's like if I am self-marketing this thing, and I'm sitting there at the post, all right, and make a public announcement at the post, hey, I got a 1-bedroom, 1-bath with internal washer and dryers, renting out for $1,600. If you know somebody who needs to be in here, and I've made sure that it's veteran, I'm a mile away from the Veterans Hospital, all right. So if any of you guys are out there and you're debating what to do with this oversized lot, especially if you're near one of the colleges, if you're in Glendale, near GCU, if you're in, well, not in Glendale, of course, because Glendale hasn't passed this, but if you're in Phoenix near GCU or near Grand Canyon or any other, minimum short term or anything like that. Let me double check on this to see if we can do 6 months. All right, no more. Trying to see it. I don't see anything on here about a 6-month lease. But seriously, if you rented this thing out on a 6-month lease, now you can get traveling nurses in. Money to be made in renting out to traveling nurses. So if you decide to look into this kind of prospect, especially if you find a contractor out there, let me know. In fact, if I could find a contractor out there, I would bring him in on this show and we'd have an entire conversation about what the mechanics are of getting that done. All right, this is good. This is good news, people. I am delighted. All right, and it's a good use of the land. All right, it's a really, really great use for the land if you have an oversized lot that you're not doing anything with. All right, or what else are you going to do with it? Put a swimming pool in it? No, because then you have to watch the kids and pets around the frickin' swimming pool. All right, which you are doing. I know this because you're watching my podcast. The other thing about this is you're not driving into flooded things. I did not get the rain this fall like I was really expecting, but I know somebody out there is thinking about doing it. Do not do that, all right? And, of course, you guys are all going to have a really great weekend. Thank you very much for putting up with my ranting today, and I'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.